Hi, this is Laura Wogozogen, your math instructor for this semester. This is going to be a brief intro to our first project, which is going to cover candy bars. So in our modules on Canvas, you will find a folder that's called Project 1. It says candy bars. At the very beginning, there will be an intro video. I have uploaded the project as a PDF file and then also as a Word document. Those are identical, just one as a PDF and one as a Word document. And then I also uploaded a partial project example. This is not using the same data, this is using CAR data, so it's not even close. And then also our project 1 upload for us to upload and to be graded. So first thing I want to point out though is right before project number 1, you will also notice that there's a StatDisk help for the projects. Here we have an intro video you should definitely watch before even beginning project 1. And then the StatDisk manual, some help videos which are great to look at. There's also additional videos on YouTube. An introduction by Mario Triola, who is not just the author of StatDisk, but also the author of our textbook. And then also some StatDisk information. So going back to project 1, I'm going to open up the PDF of our project, and we're just going to go through this quickly, just like as if we were sitting in class together. So for this, you will notice that our project is on candy bars, and I'll zoom in here so we can see it a little bit better. And there is an introduction here that talks about candy bars and some history with it, but I'm going to start where it breaks. But you can definitely read that introduction on your own time. So right below this, it says we'll conduct a study on grams of sugar in candy bars using 17 candy bars. So we're all using the same 17 candy bars. Those candy bars are listed on this article. So if you click on this, it will pull up the article and you will see all 17 candy bars listed along with a lot of information about them. But the only information that we care about and that we need to record is going to be grams of sugar. I want you guys to note on here too is that the Baby Ruth grams of sugar are 32 grams, and it's not listed in the article. It has the picture and all the other information about the Baby Ruth, but unfortunately it just forgot the 32 grams of sugar. So make sure you take note of that and add that into your project. So using the data provided on the above website, write down the grams of sugar for the 17 candy bars, and then use this information to complete the project. The points for each part are listed, and the total points that can be earned are 45. This is an individual project, and each student will submit their own project solutions. You may work together, but you should have unique answers written for yourself. So make sure you explain it in your own words and not copy from a classmate. So this project needs to be typed. Each part needs to be correctly labeled and in order, and a statistical computer program needs to be used. The program that we will be using for this project, along with all the other projects for our semester, is StatDisk. There is a link here for StatDisk, and StatDisk is going to be a free statistical computer program. So we are only using 17 candy bars in this project, but this program allows us to use thousands of data values, much more than what a graphing calculator can use. So in our next project, we will be using a larger data set, but since this is our first one, we'll be using this smaller one just to kind of get used to this new program. So using a graphing calculator will result in 0 points, and that responds to parts 3, 4, and 5, where you have to use StatDisk. So it says parts 3, 4, and 5 must have screenshots of the output of StatDisk. If you're unsure how to take a screenshot with the device that you're using, it's unique. So this means that it's different for like iPhones as it is for Androids, as it is for PCs, as it is for Macs, as it is for different tablets. So this is definitely something you can either look up on YouTube. You can always try to reach out to our tech department also to get some help with this. Distributions or tables can be created using Excel, StatDisk, or Word, or any of the Google documents. You also must provide a specific answer, so answers need to be rounded 3 decimal places. No points are rewarded for using a graphing calculator. The objective for this project is to gain a knowledge of working with a statistical computer program, which is part of the requirements for this class. So the first part that we have on here is to create a frequency distribution that includes the name of the candy bar and the grams of sugar for the 17 candy bars that are listed in the article. This is worth 2 points. And so with this, a distribution is just a table. And so we're making a table with the names of the candy bars and the grams of sugar. So make sure you do that. And again, you can use Excel, you can type it in StatDisk, you can type it in Google Tables and Google Docs. And so we have our Google Sheets. It says create a grouped frequency distribution with a class width of 3 grams of sugar and a starting value of 18 grams of sugar. This is worth 7 points. So this is for number 2. We did an example very similar to this on soccer player weights in our notes. So that might be a good example to go back and look at to get some help and guidance on number 2. And then we start number 3. So back up here again, number 3, 4, and 5 all must have a screenshot of the output from StatDisk. So going back to number 3, this says to create a histogram with a class width of 3 grams of sugar and a starting value of 18 grams of sugar. This one is worth 7 points. So I'm going to go ahead and open up StatDisk. And you'll notice that when you open up StatDisk, it looks almost like Excel. There's a table here. And in this table here, you would have to type in the grams of sugar that you have for all 17 candy bars. I have no idea what they are, so I'm just going to make up some numbers of like 320. That's completely wrong. 150, 478. But you would have to type in the actual data that we have on the grams of sugar from that article. So make sure you have all 17 candy bars. I would also double check to make sure you correctly typed those numbers in when you're doing your project. And on StatDisk, you'll notice that there's drop downs. So we have analysis, resampling, data, and then also data sets. This last category here, data sets, we will be using this for a different project. But for right now, we are creating a histogram. So if you select data, you'll notice that histogram is listed. And what's nice with StatDisk is it does use pretty much the same terminology that we would use in class. So selecting histogram, you'll notice that here you're able to give this graph a title. So make sure to give it a correct title. You are able to select the column where you typed in your data, which is probably in column 1. If not, select the correct column. You can label your X value, so make sure that this is appropriate. What is it that we're talking about with our X value, and what is it that we're talking about with our Y value? So make sure you have those labeled and correctly for our project. Remember, this is talking about grams of sugar. And then we have an auto-fit option or a user-defined option, which is asking for the class width and the class start value. So that information was given to us. So I am going to select that option. And I am going to type in the values here that were given to me in the project. Once I have that, I can go ahead and select plot down below. And then this will turn into our histogram that we need. From there, I need to take a screenshot of this and insert that screenshot into my project. And remember, this is number 3. So you should have information before number 1 and number 2 were those tables. And then number 3 would be this histogram. So definitely make sure you reach out if you have any questions. But let's go back to our project. Number 4, also required StatDisk. This is asking for descriptive statistics of your raw data. This means sample mean, sample standard deviation, and also the 5-number summary. So going back to StatDisk, if you need to get back to the table to type or edit anything, hit the left upper StatDisk online. And if you select that, it'll take you back to where you had your values typed. And we are looking for descriptive statistics. So if you hit data again and this drop down, you'll notice that there's an option here, explore data, descriptive statistics. So selecting this one's a lot nicer. You're just going to select where you typed your numbers, all 17 candy bars, and hit evaluate. You'll notice that on the left, there is a bunch of information here. This is where we would have to take our screenshot of. And you'll notice that we have a mean, we have our sample standard deviation, I have my 5-number summary. And so I'm going to take a screenshot of this and I'm going to insert it into my project. And then underneath that, I need to write out the exact answers that it's asking for. So the mean is, and then round it 3 decimal places. The sample standard deviation is, and round that 3 decimal places. And then also the 5-number summary. So make sure you don't only put that screenshot, but you also type the answers and round those typed answers correctly, which for this project it is 3 decimal places. So number 5 is asking for us to create a box plot. So again, going back to StatDisk, and I will select that StatDisk Online in the upper left-hand corner just to get back to the home page. This time we were asked to make a box plot. It does say do not include fences, and it's not a modified box plot. So if you hit select data again, the drop down, you'll notice that underneath histogram, it does say box plot. So selecting this, you would select where your data is. And once you have that selected, you have a box plot or a modified box plot, but it does tell us not to use the modified box plot. So select box plot. My data again is incorrect, but you would go ahead and get that box plot and take a screenshot and insert that into your project. So again, 3, 4, and 5 need to have screenshots. If you do not have a screenshot, then no points are rewarded for that, since that is the main purpose of this project, is getting used to StatDisk. If you have questions, make sure you reach out and also get a very early start on this. Number 6 says describe the shape of the distribution of the box plot in part 5. Use complete sentences and clearly explain your reasoning. Make sure to use the same wording as stated in class and in the notes. So again, go back and look at your notes. Wording needs to be the same. This is something that's very important, especially with an online class, since you might be using outside resources or anything else. So make sure you're looking at our notes and using the correct terminology that we use in our class. So that is for 2 points. The next thing says determine if there are any outliers. Must show all work and clearly explain why or why not an outlier exists in our data set. So again, to find your outliers, you need to find your interquartile range, and then you also need to find your lower fence and your upper fence. Remember, something is an outlier if it's smaller than your lower fence or greater than your upper fence. So this will have some work that you will need to do. You can type it, or you can work it out by hand and just take a picture of it and insert that picture into your project. But you do need to work this out and show your work. It also does ask to clearly explain why or why not an outlier exists in our data set. This part is worth 4 points. Part 8 says find a different candy bar. You can look either at the grocery store or just online. And this is not something that should be listed on our 17 candy bars. So definitely not like the Baby Ruth or any of the other ones that are listed on that article. So you record the name of the candy bar and just the grams of sugar in your candy bar. So find something different, write down the name of the candy bar and the grams of sugar. This is 1 point. The next part that we have is number 9, which says find the z-score for your new candy bar in part 9, using the sample mean and sample standard deviation from part 4. So again, for your z-score, to calculate this, we do have a formula that's in our notes. This is going to be taking your value minus the mean and divide by the standard deviation. So definitely calculate your z-score, round it correctly. Remember, 3 decimal places is how we round for this project. And make sure you show your work. And then part 10, the last one that we have, says determine if the grams of sugar in your candy bar in part 9 is significantly low, significantly high, or not significant. Make sure to use complete sentences and clearly explain your reasoning, and make sure you use the wording from our class and our notes in our textbook. So for this, we talked about significantly low, significantly high, and not significant many times throughout our first unit. And so you want to look for, there is in your notes, is almost like a triangle, almost like an arrow pointing both ways, and you'll see that there's some different ways to look at significantly low, significantly high, or not significant. You can use the z-score that you calculated up above to do that. So definitely something to go back and look at your notes and make sure you explain. And this part is worth 5 points. So again, we are using StatDisk. You need to type in your 17 values here. Again, I would double check to make sure that they're typed in correctly before you even begin. And then you want to make sure you go through all these parts. So this is our first project. Get an early start on this, and please, please, please reach out if you have any questions. Best of luck.